Next up, at UFC 312, we have the main card opener. This is about the time that everybody's going to start complaining this card sucks. And while it's not the greatest card on paper, all of these matchups are fun. These should be exciting fights, fun fights.
I think that I know that there's no real name value, especially on the main card and stuff, but I think that you're going to find out that this might end up being one of the best cards of the year because I think the matchmaking is fantastic on this card.
I agree. And when you get UFCs in the countries that don't get them very often, the energy's through the roof. The people are there early. That affects the fights. Like it's just better vibes as a whole.
I don't know if Australia is that type of crowd.
Aren't they a bunch of drunks? Like they're gonna be there at like 2:30 in the morning pounding beers?
I don't know.
Yeah, dude, they're doing shoeies at like what's 4 o'clock in the morning their time when Tai Tuivasa's fighting. No tie is kind of a miss for them, but is what it is.
You got a fucking what's his name? Taffa.
Justin Taffa. Yeah, the same guy.
The real Taffa. I think a lot of people think that it's not the real Taffa fighting, which is concerning.
That it's his dumbass younger brother.
This is like the real one that really hits.
Yeah,
hard.
the good one. Yeah. The stick leg one.
Guys,
yeah.
Don't forget, this is the guy that really fucking knocks people out. So.
Well,
Sam,
we're gonna open up.
I don't know, Sam. I don't know if you know that, but.
Oh yeah, Sam's all in on the Giant. Well, we'll get there when we get there. We're opening up the UFC 312 main card with an Australia versus the rest of the world matchup. The rest of this card is that until the main event. We got Jake Matthews and the co-main event. We got Jake Matthews taking on Francisco Prado. Jake Matthews, 20-7 in his career, 3-2 in his last 5 years, coming off that decision win over Philip Rowe, taking on Francisco Prado, 12-2 in his career, 3-2 in his last 5. He's coming off that decision loss to Daniel Zellhuber. Jake Matthews, pretty well-rounded guy, good fighter overall, 2-1 favorite, needs to be investigated a little bit because while he does have some good grappling and a nice variety of strikes and he works angles pretty well, he also doesn't have a great anything. He's not an amazing striker. He doesn't have a ton of power. He's just good everywhere. He averages almost 2 takedowns per fight. The solid striking differential, right? 3 strikes landed to only 2 received. There is some power in the hands. He's coming off that decision win over Phil Rowe where he was out striking the person that people thought would win the striking matches, right? Everybody said Phil Rowe can outstrike this guy. He's a good boxer. He's got great range. And then Jake Matthews outstruck him, which I think surprised a lot of people.
That guy, Philly Fresh, is like the most frustrating guy to ever.
He's got all the talents. Sometimes he freezes up.
Hell out of me.
Oh yeah, like when he was just
don't
2
clinch
back
Neil
steps
Magny.
away. Yeah, 2 back steps away.
Don't clinch Neil Magny and you will dominate the fight. And he comes in and just clinches Neil Magny and loses the fight. Nice guy though. I met him at Tampa.
He seems like a good dude, and his social media presence is pretty funny too. So, Jake Matthews is taking on Francisco Prado, notably a lightweight moving up a weight class. He's a power striker.
Before.
Yeah, and he's not a small guy, so it's not as if this
he's
is
a little
like,
short, but he's pretty.
Yeah,
That's why a lot of people are like, nobody's talking about. I think he's had like 1 fight at 170. I think 3 or 4 fights at 165, like weird catch weight type fights. And
close
stuff,
enough.
So.
Yeah. Yeah, he's not tiny for 170. He's not tremendous for 155, but he's not going to, I bet next to each other, he doesn't look that much smaller. You wouldn't necessarily know there was a weight class difference. He is pretty aggressive, comes in hot, big looping shots. He's got head kicks, Muay Thai clinch, insane power, at least at 55. That should translate up. He keeps his head straight up in the air. He can be touched. He can grapple as well, and while it's not his plan A, he will shoot some doubles. He will use some power to scoop you up, slam you down if he can. He's incredibly explosive, incredibly dangerous. He does tend to slow down just a bit. He's coming off that loss to Daniel Zellhuber, where he was running forward, he was chasing, he was trying to turn that into a dogfight. And I don't get the line here. I understand Jake Matthews is bigger. He's had a couple of good showings, right? He didn't get finished immediately by a very good, what the hell's his name? The beautiful guy.
I wasn't listening. What'd you say?
Who did Jake Matthews just not get absolutely dominated by? That good-looking dude 2 fights ago? Okay. Well, he didn't get dominated in that fight, so that bought him a little bit of, wow, okay, maybe he's pretty good. He did just beat Phil Rowe. So people are like, wow, his striking's coming a long way. And while I don't disagree with those two statements, I do think that Jake Matthews needs a little bit of space, likes to fight clean. He likes to keep things tight. And I think Francisco Prado can crowd him, can keep it a mess, can make it chaotic and frustrate Jake Matthews. I am actually going to pick Jake Matthews here because of his durability and because I've seen Prado slow down in the past. If 170 means Prado doesn't have to cut a bunch of weight and his cardio will be better, then that's going to be a problem for Jake Matthews because I do think he's going to give up the first round and he's going to need to stay durable to take over the second and the third to win this fight. This should be an absolute banger. What do you think, Jakey boy?
Yeah, I like Francisco Prado. I mean, the kid came in 20 years old, fought Jamie Malarkey, and if you watch that fight, you could tell he was a little bit green, right? And that wasn't too long ago. He's still only 22 years old. That was, only 2 years ago. But I think that was a little bit of a wake up call on maybe you're not quite there. He's an undefeated guy, so he came in with that confidence, and you saw the confidence early, and then Jamie Malarkey is a lightweight that I know a lot of people don't think is very good, but his boxing is pretty clean, and what he does really well is keep range really well with the jab, right? And a guy that keeps range really well with the jab is always going to have some success against Francisco Prado because he is going to be a little bit shorter guy, especially if he is going to continue to fight at 170. He's going to continue to be that shorter guy, but he is pretty good at that kind of peekaboo Mike Tyson style. When you watch him fight, another Argentinian that everyone loves now is Esteban Ribovics. He fights exactly like Esteban Ribovics. He is on his toes. He is high guard. He is bobbing and weaving like this, and he is bobbing and weaving, and he is blitzing in. He is all gas, no brakes, with a fucking concrete head, and he also has good wrestling and grappling as well. I know he was kind of controlled a little bit by Jamie Malarkey taken down, but the guy's not a fucking quitter, too. If you watch the end, the very last 30 seconds of that Jamie Malarkey fight, Jamie Malarkey gets a takedown, was probably thinking, I'll just take this guy down, control, ride it out, and get this win. All of a sudden, Francisco Prado, just like Esteban Ribovics loves to do, grabs a Kimura. Kimura sweeps him, ends up on top, and almost snaps Jamie Malarkey's fucking arm off. And he's not a fucking quitter. He came in against Ottman and just knocked him out, tried to mix in some takedowns as well. He's got offensive wrestling. Defensive wrestling isn't great, but nobody's really pressed it since that Jamie Malarkey, so we don't really know. He's at ATT now, which is a great camp for him to be in. Tons of bodies in this weight class, 155, 170. And that Zellhuber fight, that was in Mexico City against a very long, rangy guy, a 79-inch reach that was pumping out the jab, blasting kicks. He didn't get discouraged. I actually thought he won the first round of that fight, right? Then he started getting beat up by that jab. Daniel Zellhuber is 5 times the striker that Jake Matthews is, right? Knows how to keep that range with the teep kicks, with that jab. Francisco Prado didn't fucking give up on herself, right? I busted up. He's still moving forward. After the second round, the ref comes up, has a conversation with him. Hey, I need to see some stuff, man. I might stop this fight. He went right at Zellhuber, was staying in that fight again. 155, Mexico City, 10,000 feet. Yeah, he got a little bit tired, but he never fucking quit. Most people are just, now he's feeling good at the 170 weight class. When I watch this guy, when I see this guy, I see a lot of fucking heart. I see a lot of fucking skill. I see a lot of forward pressure. And like you said, Jake Matthews, he was comfortable in that Phil Rowe fight because Phil Rowe was just kind of taking his time doing that Phil Rowe stuff, and Jake could kind of work in when he needed to work in and work out when he needed to work out. Jake Matthews is a guy that he is at his core a wrestler and a grappler, and he doesn't really go to that unless he really has to. And if it gets to that point against a guy like Francisco Prado, who's going to be a fucking ox probably at 170, I think it's going to be way, way too late. So I think Francisco Prado, honestly, when I watch him, I see Esteban Ribovics. He isn't quite as fluid the way he throws combinations, but the way he does that peekaboo boxing, pressures, throws combinations, and can finish fights anywhere on the ground or with his hands as well. And again, pay-per-view, we're back with those old gloves as well. If people have the old glove, theory of more finishes and more power, well, if you're a blitz-in power boxer like a guy like Francisco Prado with those old gloves, we'll see what happens. Unless Jake Matthews is putting this guy on his back and controlling him early, and winning the first couple rounds like that, I'm all over Francisco Prado.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree, right? I picked Jake Matthews because I think he can start to take over later. He'll be at home. He's a little bigger. He can lean on the wrestling. But Francisco Prado is definitely the more dangerous of the two. And
Jamie Mullarkey fights long. I think Jamie Mullarkey's got kind of the similar reach as Jake Matthews. I think he's 73 inch. Do you have yeah, 73. I think Jamie Mullarkey was a 74-inch reach. Obviously, Zellhuber was like 78 or 79. But Jake Matthews doesn't fight long, right? He's not pumping out a long jab or what. I mean, he'll get in the pocket and box. And I think this is a great matchup for Francisco Prado.
Yeah, I mean, this will be a fun one. I'm going to check out the props here. I likely am going to touch a little bit of Francisco Prado inside the distance decision, no action. He is the more dangerous of the two, but protect me against Jake Matthews turning into Nurmagomedov.
And one of there's two things. I already mentioned the ATT. I think that's a great place for Francisco to be. I think he's been there the last 6 months or so, something like that. But the other thing too is Jake Matthews. I think one of his biggest training partners and his boy in this fight is fucking Jimmy Crute. And we'll get to Jimmy Crute, but Jimmy Crute is, that's your boy, but
a retiree.
He's not Francisco Prado. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, no,
I love that. I mean, I love that peekaboo style.
Yeah, no, Francisco Prado is a ton of fun to watch, and that's why this card people are complaining about it because I don't know. We have 2 title fights. Somehow that's not good enough, and people complain about the rest of the card, but. It will be fun. This will definitely be a fun fight. If you do want to unlock all the picks, the bets, the tools, and everything else, WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member. At the top, it's only $10. That $10 will unlock every single thing that we do for an entire month. And when I say month, I'm not saying like the month of February. It's a number to a number. If you sign up today, February 4th, you will have full access to March 4th and every event in between. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the top. And it was Michael Morales, who I said the handsome guy that Jake Matthews didn't get murdered by.
But he's also like just kind of takes his time,
technical
and shots, and just kind of plots forward. And
I was using that as a
tornado.
I was using that as a why Jake Matthews might be a 2-1 favorite. People were like he should have been annihilated, and he didn't. $2 super chat from Ali Point VTV. Thanking Jacob for the MVP play.
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I was glad. I mean, obviously there was a couple of lock of the week's options. We both picked MVP. We both picked who was that other underdog that won? There's a lot.
The only thing I literally was worried about was that they were just gonna fucking do the handy decision or whatever. And so when those rounds were, but then I mean. Obviously, none of the rounds are really even that close because Charles literally wasn't fucking doing anything. I mean, you see, at any time the MVP fights anybody, they just get frozen. Ian Gary was like, I'm the better striker. I'm going to out-volume him. Every time he throws 1, I'm going to throw 5. And then he went in there and was like, everyone just fucking freezes. So I was just worried MVP wasn't going to do quite enough, but he obviously did enough. So
no, that was a fun one to watch. I enjoyed it. And, man, who was that other underdog? Oh, maybe he was a favorite. He got his ass kicked in the first round, and then the second round got the finish. He beat Lucas Alexander. He became an underdog come fight night. Yeah, Bogdan became an underdog come fight night. And he was another one that I was like, ooh, baby. So.
Yeah, that was going to be – honestly, I felt almost better about that one than MVP. Because MVP could have been a close decision. I knew Bogdan was not going to get finished, and I knew that dude's a fucking dog.
It would have been nerve-wracking, though. That would have been a perfect lock of the week to watch. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, watching him lose, all the hate flood in just for him to come out in the second round to get the finish and everybody backtrack.
Well, that's why I immediately get MVP hadn't even fought yet. I'm getting tweets. It should have been Bogdan. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? MVP was the most clean victory of any underdog. Like he had no issue. There was no adversity at all. And I already had it should have been what are you talking about?
And he was a bigger dog.
Yeah.
He was plus 185. Bogdan was our favorite most of the week and then flipped at the last minute.
Every time the second the dog wins, it should have been.
Yeah, he should have been Hani Barcelos. Yeah, okay.
Those are the favorite comments after an entire event. When a lock of the week loses, and there's after the event's over, then somebody comments or somebody says, it should have been Yeah, if I could pick my lock of the week after the results are done, yeah, it'd be very easy to do. You're right. It should have been them. You're right. Especially the cards where one underdog wins, and it's not the lock of the week. It should have been the one lock of the week that won, or the one underdog that won. You're right.
I love when every now and then a tweet will go viral. Somebody tweets right after an event, here's my predictions, and then dummies don't look at the whatever, and then it just goes viral randomly. Yeah. I love seeing that. That's always a good time.